Okay, so checking for leaks. There's a good question on that. So one way to do that, if you're going to put down your membrane, we want to check for leaks, is you can do a flood test. And the other way is EFVM, or electronic field vector mapping. Is it sounds high tech. I think it's fairly simple from what it sounds like. Is a system that you can install, and you can actually pinpoint where leaks are through electronic resistance, where they, and I'm no expert at this, but basically that you have the the deck below the membrane, and then you saturate the roof deck above, and you can charge this, and where water is penetrating that membrane and causing an electronic connection between that roof deck and that water, they can pinpoint where that leak is and be able to say, okay, well, it's within, I don't know, a few feet of this area or something like that. So it sounds kind of magic to me, but I guess it's fairly common and something that's being recommended more often when, and I don't say it's necessarily because of Ecoroofs, just in general as good protection for being able to find leaks in your roof. And similar, like Tom's talking about on the Fire Station 12, where, just right out of the gates, it would be nice to know where some of those leaks are if there was some, because you have the contractor on hand and say, hey, there's a leak right here, let's get this fixed before you're up, the warranty's up, and everybody's moved on, and this thing's been leaking for a little while. So I guess it's kind of nice to not only be able to detect it up front, but then also later on. And they're compatible with Ecoroofs, is what we've heard. So I'd say in general, though, like the mosaic discussion we had, let's just minimize penetrations if we can, or at least consolidate them maybe in one area. And that seems to, at least Fire Station 12, there were leaks right there at the vents. Yeah.
I was going to say, who do you typically put in charge of being responsible for verifying that the roof membrane meets the standards for not leaking? Is it the architect, the landscape architect, the roofing contractor? Who's ultimately responsible for signing off on most of the new construction? Or is there one person?
Excluding Ecoroofs?
Well, Ecoroofs is just part of it. You mean someone has to see that the material has been installed properly, correct?
Right.
Who's typically doing that in the design team?
It's usually the roofing contractor.
Okay.
And then a lot of times they'll have a product manufacturer come out and certify the roof that it was put down properly. And we did a new roof, and it was a Firestone product, and the PDM, and they had a person come out and examine it and certify it.
So the architect's typically writing that in their spec then? Is that
it would
fair
be.
to say?
And that's probably why only 20% of all the roofs that are brand new leak within the first year.
Dave?
One
thing I wanted to mention, as far as roofing membranes, some manufacturers warranty residential, some don't. Some warranty commercial only. So that's one thing in picking membranes, is that you have to look at whether you're wanting a warranty. And then one thing I've learned lately, that there can be chemical reactions between different types of products being laid on top of each other.
Yeah, that's the thing. We talked a little bit about that, and we decided to leave that to roofing experts and those people who are understanding the intricacies of whether the insulation is going to react with the roof membrane or the root barrier, those kinds of things. But there are definitely some of those issues.
And I think that's another issue with regard to the using copper, things like that, because
right.
Copper has a problem with other metals.
Can degrade,
and
right?
Things like that.
This is the flood test of the Portland building, and this is where, is it Tom that's got a fish hooked, or does the building have Tom hooked? I can't tell which, but so he's out there in his hip waders rolling around, and then here's just kind of an interesting shot that you have.
And if I could just mention something about this, when we did this, we didn't do the flood test. The contractors did the flood test and everything. Tim, who works in does our stormwater monitoring, he and I went out and we were measuring the depth of the water to see if how the roof was designed. What was really fascinating is that while we were up there, if you're familiar with the term boatman, I think that's the term. It's a little, it's a wetland insect, and so one day of saturating this roof, having this roof saturated or flooded for one day, these little wetland species found the roof and were in the water within 1 day. So theoretically, they thought, oh, this is the beginning of a wetland, you know. And then, of course, when they pulled the plug, they went down the drain. So hopefully they went back to the river. But it was just a fascinating thing that within 1 day they were up there. It was just
How deep was that at the max?
I think it was close to 8 inches. Yeah, and it's a roof.
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah, Peter, it's a lot of weight. Yeah, well, that's right at the drain.
Yeah.
8 inches right at the drain, and then it was, you know, way up by the parapet. It was only about 2 or less than 2 inches at the parapet. And then they did have a leak. They flooded it twice. One side they flooded it. There was a leak. They fixed the leak. They flooded it again. It didn't leak. Then they flooded the other half of the roof. It leaked. Did the same thing. So they found 2 leaks in that particular process, and hopefully there aren't any more. Now, for those of you who hear different things about this building, the walls in this building leak, but not the roof itself. Doors leak as well, and they're working on that. It's a multi-$1,000 project to plug the leaks in the building. That comes later.